We've got Jane Patterson and Amy Adams. I'm going to come straight to you, Amy, as a former Cabinet Minister, National Party MP, listening closely to Paul Goldsmith, who has been one of your senior members over the term. The D word, disunity, death. It's a killer in politics, isn't it?
It is a killer, and that's the one lesson National has to take away from tonight more than anything else. Play as a team, get in behind the leader, work as a team, stop the infighting and disunity. I think that's been part of this election. I still think the major impact has been COVID and New Zealand's response to that. But there's no question, if you don't play as a team, you don't get past first base, and that has to be the core message in the caucus room post this election, I think.
Yeah, you were telling me that you go around and all people wanted to talk about was how Jacinda Ardern had saved their lives. That's pretty much the message you were getting on the doorstep.
Absolutely, and it was tough because before COVID, National was polling 46%. People were seeing that this government hadn't delivered. There were real cracks starting to show. People were questioning the rhetoric. COVID hit, and we got what's actually a very natural reaction, which is when there's a crisis, you swing in behind the government. We saw that with National, with the earthquakes and with the GFC, and now Labour's benefiting from that. But I still think New Zealand hasn't really appreciated the severity of the economic crisis ahead of us, and that hasn't been what people have been thinking about and talking about in this election. I think that's a shame. I think that's going to be an issue for us, but it's clear New Zealanders felt that their lives were saved by this Prime Minister, and it's been very difficult to talk about anything else with him.
Jane, you were looking at some of those National MPs who will miss out. You've been going through the list there.
There are a lot in trouble. So basically, anyone under the below about 22, so Jonathan Young, in trouble in New Plymouth that we've been talking about, given that the coalition government stopped oil and gas exploration for them to actually be a real fight in that seat. But Tim McIndoe, both the Hamilton seats look to be gone, and a lot of these ethnic MPs. So there's a Bakshi Polo-Garcia, Pamjit Palmer, Agnes Lawheni, Alfred Ngaro, Matt Ducey's in trouble in Waimakariri, Stuart Smith's in trouble in Kaikoura, Lawrence Yule looks like he's won Tuki and would not get back based on his list place.
Has lost
Tuki,
which is extraordinary, isn't it? Because that's a true blue seat.
And some of these seats, we would have put in the bank at the start of tonight. We knew it was going to be a tough night for National. I didn't think it would be this tough. And we're seeing now battles in seats, frankly, we look to be losing.
Well, look at that one.
You never would have picked.
Look at that one, Amy.
Look, Wanganui. Wanganui I knew would be tough, but that sort of result is a lot.
So for those just to stick with Whanganui there for a minute, for those who are listening on radio, look at that swing to Labour, 17% in a seat that really you would have expected National to, as you in your words, to have in the bank.
But what I think we're seeing too is this. There's clearly been a very strong two-tick response. So people are voting Labour, and we saw that with COVID, but that's really tracking through to electorate vote in a way I haven't seen for a number of elections.
And we've seen on the campaign trail quite a strong message from National voters who didn't hate Jacinda Ardern. It wasn't, we didn't have that tribal feeling that we have in the past where, people really dislike the leader of the other party. And obviously that comes back to the COVID response too. And maybe that's how we've seen that swing in those electorate seats, not just that party vote, has been a big contributor to
Amy, would you expect to see a major review? I remember when National lost badly with just 20.93% of the vote in 02. Bill English got 20-odd seats. He did a big review of the party. He came back quite strongly. Stephen Joyce started to get involved. Is it time for people like Peter Goodfellow and some of those people who have been, they've done very well to serve their time? Is it time for a major rethink of National?
Well, before I start throwing anyone under the bus, where I do think I agree is that, of course, you have to have a serious look at yourself after a result like this. You can't poll what's looking like 25, 26% and not be prepared to have a pretty open and honest and difficult conversation right across the party about what didn't work well. Now, I'll keep saying it, COVID made this a very different election, and we don't want to forget that. But we'd be foolish not to accept that we've done some things wrong. We've got to get some things better. Right from our candidate selection, we've had a few issues with, candidates that have had some issues we've had to deal with, through to the way as we talked about the unity in the caucus, how we get the policy out, how we read the mood. Everything has to be on the table. You'd be foolish not to.
Okay, I'm just hearing in Nelson, 70% counted, 4,000 behind for National Party's Nick Smith there. Wow, that's a pretty signal result. And I want to talk about Auckland Central, because it's a pretty interesting seat, a lot of interest obviously there, and Chloe Swarbrick at the moment is ahead with 65% of the vote counted. She has 7,577. You can see it there if you're watching on TV. Let's have a look there closely at Auckland Central. So
starting to solidify.
Okay, so
yeah.
So we've got Chloe Swarbrick on 7,727, and about 500 odd votes back is Helen White from the Labour Party. Emma Mallow in a fairly distant third there. I guess Nikki Kay had held it against the sort of against the odds, if you like, right?
Absolutely. It had never been a national seat. Nikki did an extraordinary job to take it off Judith Tizard. No one saw it coming. It was the big shock of the 2008 election. And I know Nikki well. She is an absolute relentless energiser bunny. She never stops working. She is absolutely relentless for her electorate residents, and they rewarded her for that. And Nick, I think it really speaks more to the fact that Nikki held that seat against the odds for a long time. In this election, it was going to be very difficult for a new person coming in to continue to fight against the tide. And I think Emma's actually, it's not a bad result for Emma.
Now Shane Reti, who's been someone who has been lauded throughout the campaign, one of the few national MPs who has sort of held that position, and people thought he did very well in health. He's behind, I hear,
Whangarei, yes.
700 votes behind, with 38% counted there, so it isn't as much as some of those seats. But Shane Reti, would he be out? Would he?
No,
would he get back?
He's hard. The strange thing is, with us looking to lose a number of seats we previously held, suddenly there's a lot more list MPs who will get in out off the top. So he and people like Nick Smith now look as if they should be okay with the numbers we're currently seeing. And Nick will be devastated to lose Nelson, but it gets another lifeline. Shane will certainly be in that position as well.
Are there any MPs that you would see retiring on the back of these results? Jerry Brownlee saying that the decision about whether he would take that list position, Nick Smith another one, obviously very long political careers. Do you see some actual retirements as a result of this?
Those are decisions that those MPs will make for themselves, and I certainly wouldn't want to start speculating. I mean, these are senior MPs who've given decades of service to the public. Regardless of what your politics are, you've got to admire the years they've given.
Okay.